Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's nothing quite like an unfolding Middle Eastern disaster on an epic humanitarian scale to make your closet white Western supremacist and Islamophobe feel all warm and glowy inside, and generally good about their chill life in the best part of the world. Life is good, isn't it?
Ripped through the air.
Sheesh! Someone just lost a leg. Ouch. Is there? Your leg's over there, bro. For such people, innocent Muslims dying in their droves amidst utter chaos and thousands turned refugees is the ultimate confirmation bias.
Most of the world is not like here. There are perhaps 30 or 40 countries dotted around the globe like lights in the darkness, where there is a chance of living the kind of life we have been able to take for granted.
This is when you only see the events in the world as confirming your own prejudices at the expense of reality. In this case, the white Christian West is intrinsically superior by definition.
If you harm a hair on the head of an American, we're going to stack Taliban bodies. Give us 24 hours wide open, every American in, you touch one, you die.
You've negotiated with these savages. How do you think this is going to shake out?
Under normal circumstances, few people would give such raving lunacy the time of day. West is the best? Just shut up, man. So, as you can imagine, with Afghanistan kinda spectacularly exploding, the white savior industrial complex is now busy, gleefully throwing a ton of death, destruction, and misery on your screen to convince you of the fact with pictures and screaming little girls.
I feel like they're gonna stop by the door and they're the Taliban and they're gonna come in and kill us.
We are at the whim of our enemy. The people who facilitated the 9/11 attacks now control which Americans are allowed to flee the country.
Of course, they're not going to treat women respectfully. Of course, they're going to have the brutal executions they've had in the past. Of course, they're going to kill anyone that worked with Americans.
Carrying the national flag that were attacked by the Taliban.
As you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words. But in the age of social media, a picture spreads 1,000 prejudices too. These people will be over the moon by the nightly sight of the Taliban waving Kalashnikovs, women and children crying, dying to get out of Afghanistan and heading over to the West.
Here, a girl, terrified. The Taliban are coming for me, she cries.
In a perverse twist, normally hosting backward Muslim refugees would be a big
In 2015, more British Muslims were fighting for ISIS than for the British Armed Forces. Yeah. By 2016, the most popular boy's name in England and Wales, Mohammed, that every one of those was unthinkable. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I smile because...
You're a bigot?
I mean, I find it...
You're used to it.
No, because he's a bigot.
I find it... if I didn't laugh, I'd cry. I've done the crying. I mean, the point about this is that, again, all of these things you're meant to not notice.
But for now, they're prepared to swallow this bitter liberal pill in taking the friendly refugees in because it validates their agenda that Islam is the worst thing to happen to mankind since Adam and Eve were cast out of Eden.
This is the issue of men like him, and your family was under threat when we were there. I remember you and your brother and others riding back on a motorcycle, trying to get back home, and still already then being threatened by the Taliban. This is someone who has dedicated over a decade of his life directly to working with U.S. soldiers and Marines.
They don't really care about the humanitarian plight in the way, say, an aid agency would. What they really care about is hijacking the narrative, pushing their bigoted talking points, and winning the culture war. They all might as well be doing this on the loop. Just give it a year and come election season, and it'll be the same concerned talking heads throwing these same heroic Muslim refugees under the bus, talking them up into a frenzy as a potential terror threat. In fact, it might already have started.
Where we need to be really judicious about who we let into the country. And the media tries to put out this narrative that the only Afghan refugees that could come to the United States on this special immigrant visa are only the translators. It's not true. If you look at since the inception of the special immigrant visas for interpreters, particularly, there's much broader classifications in the years since 2007 that include a ton of people. We're talking about individuals who, served as food servers with private contractors in Afghanistan, also including...
Despite the fake concerns, they loved it when ISIS were around. They loved it when terrorism was a threat. And they love it now that the Taliban are back in all their theocratic glory. If these disasters were held in football stadiums, mark my words, this lot would be cheering with flags in the front seat. Because the oxygen of extremism is extremism. This is something we all misunderstand. But white Western supremacy isn't represented by a racist skinhead in the Deep South, donned in a KKK sheet, shouting out racial profanities. No, that's just in movies, silly. Reality is more insidious. Nowadays, it's men in suits with PhDs. One of many ways it manifests itself is in the subconscious belief that the world can only be saved by an able-bodied white man. It's the white savior complex. It goes something like this. If there's a problem in the world, there's only one race capable of solving it. The heroic white man. Who's going to bring democracy to Afghanistan? The heroic white man. Who's going to bring democracy to Iraq? Heroic white man. The US bungles its own exit from Afghanistan. It's the heroic white man. He just can't do no wrong. After the hero has gone around fixing all the problems of the world that other inept and bungling races have created, and like children are incapable of fixing themselves, and all the noble savages have been saved and redeemed, and the white man has realized his messianic destiny, finally there will be peace in the world. The hero will then be sat in his rightful place at the top, like the blue-eyed white Jesus from South Carolina. I mean, look how brave the heroic white man is when the Titanic sank.
It means that most of the men who were on the Titanic would rather die than trample on women and children to save themselves. That if the Titanic had been filled with Syrians and Afghans and the ship started going down, the survival statistics would say that 90 to 95% of survivors were grown men.
While the cowardly 200,000 Afghan men who've already died in this bloody conflict were obviously all hiding away like cowards in shelters, huddled behind their womenfolk. How dare some of them finally want to be spared the slaughter after 200 years of bloodshed by one great power after another? This guy is proof that prejudice makes you stupid. In this alternative blue pill reality, the heroic white man can do no wrong. Well, he is the main protagonist of this 5 billion-year-old Earth movie after all. So, America can lose 2,500 in 9/11. In revenge, they're more than justified to wipe out over 150,000 Afghans. Who decides this is fair?
The heroic white man.
15 Saudis harbored by the Taliban attacked New York, but instead Iraq was invaded and occupied. Who decides this is fair?
The heroic white man, of course.
Why hasn't Bush and Blair been held to account? Who decides this is fair?
The heroic white man, of course.
The Bush administration was caught lying about WMD. Was there any accountability on any level? Who decides this is fair?
Well, it's the heroic white man, of course.
Well, what do you expect, silly? The hero has to always win at the end, right? Like all systemic bigotry, those who embody such tropes will always get blindsided and cannibalized by their own flaws and prejudices. Most of these people aren't openly bigoted. Some will even call themselves libertarian or humanists. But now and then they will let their mask slip.
In Islam, the message seems to be, if you have an advantage, if you're bigger, if you're stronger, if you have a majority, whatever, you use that advantage to oppress and trample on everyone else.
Where do you live, Daniel?
I mean, I live in the US.
I asked him why he lives in America and why he doesn't move to an Islamic country to show us that he is consistent. He made several excuses.
Like all prejudices, it is fundamentally irrational, and it always makes you more stupid, and sometimes sadly rich, which is part of the problem. The supremacist ends up believing something not because it's factually true or based on reality, but because it fits their internal bias. And this not only makes you more stupid, but also dangerous. Some of the stupid things a Western supremacist will wrongly believe are: the Muslims are dying to reach the West because of its superior values, and because they give gays equal rights. No. The Afghans need to escape their nation because you occupied Afghanistan for 20 years. Used moderate Afghans to kill a bunch of radical Taliban, and now these moderates are scared for their life because of what's coming. Do you really think the Syrians flooded Europe because of the West's superior values and living standards? No. The Syrians were escaping the puppet tyrant the West had put there, and the ISIS the West created by illegally going into Iraq. But you'd rather believe the fairy tale version of events that we are the best, therefore.
They're not going to go to Saudi Arabia. They're not planning to break into Yemen. They want to come to Europe.
No problem. If Islam is so fantastic, why do Muslims always flee to Christian countries?
Making you stupid is probably one of the side effects of prejudice most of us can live with, but action fueled by bigoted stupidity takes this stupidity to a dangerously new level. To a level where almost 2 million Muslims die and thousands of Americans in disastrous conflicts. Therefore, let's fight this bigotry wherever we find it.